Greetings! Thus far, we have unpacked the characteristics of ethnography and seen some practical and interesting examples from the marketplace, which is part of Colette's practice. I love the nudists in the shower. So welcome to our observational, naturalistic, environmental, cultural, behavioral adventure. Welcome to part 2 of ethnography. Let's begin with an image. Last year, we took our little boy Ollie to the Toronto Zoo. While visiting the orangutans, there was a lovely Jane Goodall type lady who was silently observing the orangutan family, and she was writing down notes on this little clipboard. While this may not entirely be ethnography because she does not interact with the orangutan culture, which could be dangerous, it still lingers with me as a powerful image of the notion of observational research. So let us now swing from orangutans to try and unpack the immersive and observational world of ethnographic research. We will begin by establishing some broad tenets of ethnography and situate it within the research paradigms. Please refer to our handout for some strengths, limitations, and tips as we go. We're also going to review ethnography within an educational context. We will conclude with a brief summary and provide further readings and helpful links. While we are presenting, ponder how this approach could fit into your practice. Maybe you are already doing this to some extent. Let's share our ideas at the end of the presentation. Okay, here we go. Ethnographies are qualitative in nature. They fit into an ontological worldview where there are different realities that we must explore. Epistemologically, ethnographies are constructivist, as the researcher often works within the environment with the subjects they are observing. I refer you to Christ's 2013 Table 1 of the Different Worldviews Matrix. In practice, ethnography is usually done through observation, which involves watching, quote, either mechanically or in person, how people behave. Rather than studying people, ethnography means learning from people. This practice primarily comes from an anthropological tradition, and in the 1960s, there was considerable back and forth and tension between sociology and anthropology. This back and forth is about how the researcher becomes A, entangled and immersed in the research environment, or B, maybe they strive to observe at some sort of distance to retain sort of a social science-esque sort of objectivity. Think of it like this. In Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, Marlowe gets off the boat, but retains some distance. In Coppola's interpretation, in the movie Apocalypse Now, Willard gets off the boat and becomes one of the colony of natives. Would you stay on the boat and observe? Or would you get off the boat? This is about the role of the researcher, and it is an important consideration if you are pondering ethnographic research. An anthropologist would recommend immersing in the culture. A sociologist would perhaps recommend some measure of distance or suppression of internal bias or prejudices. For more on this particular topic, please see Chapter 3 in Mills and Morton 2013, which is a SAGE book that is available online. Another important consideration here is that ethnographies do not manipulate the environment to control different variables. That's what we would do in an experiment. Ethnography is observational. It is interpretive. It is descriptive. Unlike experimental models, you must remain open to the possibility of refining the research questions, adjusting your methods, or updating your recording tools as you explore a world through observation. There is a measure of plasticity. So what does the process of an ethnography look like? As researchers, how is this conducted? Well, you would still begin with a research question. However, you may have to alter your approach as you learn more about the people and environment you are observing. The main tools for data gathering are field notes of your observations. So put yourself as an observer in a classroom, or in a workplace, or even the college cafeteria, which was studied by Spiteri 2014, who conducted an ethnography of students and their interactions at the cafeteria with observations and spontaneous interviewing. You may even design a template to focus your observations to keep them specific to the behaviors you have linked to your research question. I will point to Walford 2009 here, who provides ample examples and ideas about the act of recording useful field notes. Additionally, Sangsubana 2011 summarized a what, where, and why of ethnography. Some of the advantages are highlighted in your handout. For instance, ethnographies are versatile, adventurous, collaborative, and ultimately insightful. There are also tips for making good observations from Savigny and Robinson, which is in the handout. Please also see Mills and Morton 2013, Chapter 5. There's an extensive review there of field notes. With regard to the analysis of those field notes, don't be confused and assume that no numbers are ever generated. For example, You could count the frequency of specific behaviors that you were observing. You can also sort the observations into different categories. For example, your field notes could be structured into a framework for looking at very specific behaviors. Later, you could sort the observations into these different categories. We call this coding, and there's also sophisticated software, I'm sure Anne can pull some up, that can aid in this process. With this, what this analysis is about finding patterns and making meaning of them. Okay, so let's take a look at ethnography in action. Ponder your own context, and let's see if we cannot find some practical applications and ties to teaching and learning. Here's a fun one to get us started. It resonated with me. I'm from Bowmanville, and in my foolish adolescence, everyone partied outdoors. And the Swedish government wanted to explore youth partying and binge drinking. Ander, Abramson, and Gerdner, 2015, explored through ethnography the space and place of adolescent binge drinking. To do this, they, quote, used a variety of data collection methods to learn about the place and space of binge drinking, including direct observations, formal interviews, informal talks with the individuals and groups, among professionals as well as adolescent informants, discussions about photos taken at the places, field notes, and studying the records of meetings, end quote. This is an interesting approach, don't you think? Feels more authentic than some standardized survey. Imagine the richness of the data. Partying seems to be moving indoors in this study, and they describe in rich detail how youth will prepare the home by closing off the bedrooms, especially their parents' bedrooms, to keep the, quote, party arena in the kitchens and the living rooms. The front door of the home is used almost as a gatekeeping form of control to determine whom may enter and whom is excluded. As interesting as this is, it's not really an educational example, now is it? Well, the researchers argue that there is an important educational piece to drinking prevention programs, and that because partying is moving indoors, parents need to be brought more into the fold into those programs. So this research feeds into the Swiss government's awareness campaign about this phenomenon. Okay, so let's swing from binge drinking adolescents to preschoolers playing outside on the yard. Kantz's 2004 dissertation explored this using an ethnographic approach including field notes, journals, photos, videos, discussions, and interviews. The reason I liked the dissertation is that because a dissertation is going to be submitted for significant review by the faculty, you get a pretty detailed description of the methodology and approach. And it's helpful to see what a thesis or dissertation can look like that uses an ethnography. The dissertation explored the outside play environment and behavior of preschool children and their teachers. I won't delve into the findings, but they are interesting. What are the barriers to outdoor play? What of safety? What do children do outside? What sensory experiences do they have? What social experiences do they engage in? And what do the teachers do? This brings us to reflecting on our practice through ethnography. Danielle Sirak, a music educator, used ethnography to explore the creative processes and interactions of her music students. This was a combination of building curriculum around the ideas of empathy, and it also informed her practice. How would you teach empathy? What words do we use when we speak about our own feelings? What words do we use when we speak of other people's feelings? She used these words. Let's just stop for a sec. They were not her words. They were the words of her students whom she was observing. She used that language to help the students then write lyrics to the melodies they were constructing. I would say that we all need to kind of chew on that. How can ethnography inform your practice? Are there limitations? Sure. Think of ethnography as a tool. It may be the right tool for the right kind of research question. It may not only be a form of research, but it can also be a part of your reflective practice. You can do it on your own. It does seem to provide authentic and rich data. It may not be the right tool if you need to control a bunch of variables. If you do need to control a bunch of variables, perhaps experimental is the way to go. In my exploration of ethnography, I'm most struck by the versatility and authenticity of what this kind of research can yield. It appeals to my sense of rolling up my sleeves and immersing myself in the world I am studying. I would most definitely get off the boat and join in the colony, but I would be armed with a sound methodology so I could objectively build quality research. All right, thank you so much for spending some time with our exploration of ethnography. In our handout, we've got some tips and links and further readings. There's a lot out there, so we have a few takeaway messages. Teachers should be researchers. Ethnography is a tool for exploration of cultures and contexts. Ethnography is, of course, observational and can produce authentic and rich data. You can weave it into your practice. Consider where the researcher sits within the context of what you are researching. We have shown how versatile ethnography can be, from market research to binge drinking adolescents to shaping our practice. Ponder how ethnography can be woven into your practice. Be well and have a great week.